Everyone knows the story of Atlantis, the once giant city that was destroyed and sunk to the bottom of the ocean, never to be seen again. Some say it's fiction and never actually existed. Others disagree and believe that even now, the lost city of Atlantis sits at the bottom of the ocean. And there live the Atlanteans, an advanced race of people ruled by one man, the king of Atlantis. This is the story of Arthur Curry. Welcome to Origin. High winds and 60-foot waves smashed the rocks of a nearby lighthouse. This was the most intense storm Tom Curry, the lightkeeper, had seen that year. You see, Tom had one job, and that's to help the ships on the ocean navigate. But that night, as he was fighting the storm, looking for ships possibly in distress, he spotted something small in the distance. It was a raft, washing up close to his lighthouse. But there was something else. It was a woman who could be seen clenching to the piece of wood, struggling not to drown in this insane storm. Tom sprang into action and ran down to the shoreline to save the woman. Once the raft was close enough, Tom bravely swam to save the woman. Once in his arms, he asked her how she survived such a terrible storm. She replied by saying for now, all she could say was that her name was Atlanta, and that she was so happy he saved her. Tom was overwhelmed with her beauty, and it was love at first sight for the both of them. Their love was so strong that in only 2 weeks they got married, and only after a year they'd have their first and only child. It was a boy, and they named him Arthur Curry. Tom was the happiest he had ever been, but there was still something eating away at him. For hours a day, she would just sit outside and stare out into the ocean. Tom had always wondered what she was looking for, or why she never told him where she came from, or who her parents were. Months went by, and Tom started noticing the same strange things, but this time, it was his son, Arthur. One day, at only 10 months old, Arthur fell from their ship down to the ocean below. Tom freaked, but for some reason, his mother stayed calm. She even told Tom to relax and just watch. Before their own eyes, they could see Arthur swimming like he had been in the water his whole life. Years later, another strange thing happened. At only 2 years old, Arthur was out swimming and hit his head, knocking himself out. An hour later, his father found him underwater, playing with a turtle and some shells. Tom couldn't believe that he hadn't drowned. How could he have survived underwater for over an hour? A year later, at only 3 years old, the cove where Arthur was swimming was invaded by sharks. By the time his father had got to him, he was amazed at what he saw. Instead of a vision from a horror movie, he saw Arthur playing with the sharks, touching them without flinching. Tom then again asked his wife what this amazing mystery was about, and how their child could do something like this. She simply answered, "Well, someday I will tell you." Years went by, and finally that day came. As Arthur's mom laid on her deathbed, with only minutes left to live, she told Tom and Arthur her greatest secret. She told them that she was from Atlantis, a continent that sank into the sea years ago, and in order to survive, they grew to have marine-like tendencies, breathing underwater, swimming like fish, and even some could communicate with them. Living underwater in Atlantis all of her life, she had always dreamt of going to the surface. This was forbidden, and one day when she was caught trying to reach the surface, her punishment was to be exiled from Atlantis forever. After his mother's death, his father Tom built a giant tank and filled it with every kind of fish you can imagine. His purpose was to help increase Arthur's ability to control marine life. At first, Arthur was hesitant, not knowing what to do. But when he was face to face with 3 angry swordfish, he instinctively reached his hand out to stop them. Was surprised they did as commanded and stopped. Somehow, Arthur could communicate telepathically with these animals. One day, while Arthur was swimming to further test his abilities, he found a giant squid that was stuck underwater. Weighing his options, Arthur thought of gathering a flock of octopi to help rescue the squid. In a matter of minutes, a large flock of octopi showed up. Answering to every one of his commands, the octopi were able to free the giant squid. Arthur then communicated to every fish from miles away that he was there to help them. In only a few months, every sea creature came to Arthur to say thank you and pledged their allegiance to the new king of the ocean. Now, having the allegiance of every sea creature in the ocean, Arthur continues to patrol the ocean, keeping it safe. Now, going by a new name, Aquaman. Thank you guys so much for listening to Origin. This episode was written and narrated by me, Cameron Rainey. This month has been the biggest download month so far, and I have each and every one of you to thank, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to never miss anything Origin, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Origin_podcast, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Origin Podcast. Also, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Origin Podcast. There you'll get instant access to Patreon-only posts, episode transcripts, and even bonus episodes. And don't forget, next Monday, we're going to release an early episode of Origin based on Gambit. Hope to see you soon. Thank you always for listening, and we'll see you next time.